flashlight again. Oh, go ahead.
with all things I am one.
What a nice flashback as we freeze. Look at some of our friends that are from back in the Saturday Night Live days. Of course, co-host Deborah Giusti, and in the upper right-hand corner, our beloved Jay Mayer, who's no longer with us in the human realm. Sean Jay, the magician that we love, and Keishi Chai, who's going to be on my show Wednesday night. And there, of course, is our beloved Kristen Hoffman with her partner Troy. So brings back some wonderful, wonderful memories. And Becky, you got your groove on. I gotta say, considering all you've been doing, you got some good moves there, girl.
I'm ready to go. We're getting warmed up. We need Omashar. Keep us going.
Well, we've got two more
Awesome.
Omashar songs coming up tonight, so
Awesome.
that's good news.
It's so much fun.
Hey, everybody, this is the last show of our spring season. We have people subscribe quarter by quarter. And so this is it. This is the end of the spring season. I know many, many of you have already subscribed, but I want to just remind everybody to please join us for our summer season, which officially begins this Wednesday night, July 1st. We're kicking it off with a show dedicated to Piper Dellums and the work that she's doing with young people. So it's easy to join. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com. For any of you that are new to us that are watching on Facebook or YouTube, when you click here, go to globalpeacetribe.com, you will then register for the new season. That takes you to our registration page. What does it mean? Well, when you register, you're going to get the Zoom Room links to all of our shows for the next 3 months. We do a show every Wednesday, every Saturday, always at 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern. And then about once a month, sometimes twice, we do a Sacred Sunday show. Just like tomorrow, we're doing a Sacred Sunday show. And we've got another one coming up in a couple of weeks. So all of our shows are filled with inspirational presenters, wonderful music, always our house musical artist Omashar, and then people like Cornflower and Kristen Hoffman and others. So please do join us. Your subscription really makes a big difference and is very inexpensive. So please do join us. It means a lot. Thank you. All right. One of the things that we do on the Awakening World is we acknowledge what's going on in our world, including some of the challenges. And so, for this next section, this is a kind of something we spontaneously decided to add. This is Susan Wooldridge, and she's one of our favorite global peace tribers. She's always dancing to the music. She's the one always going around and around and around. I'm always worried about you. Um, and her family had a big event this week, which led to us having a conversation, which led to what we want to talk about tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Susan, to share a little bit about what took place with your grandson and some of the inspiration that is actually brought to you.
Thank you, Scott. Gosh, I have something blocking my face. A picture of me. How do I make that go away? Go away.
No, we're good. You're good.
I hope I don't start weeping. And it's
And if you do, tears are welcome.
I
Okay.
have so much feeling about this because honestly, my life has been dedicated to working with children and adults and people, especially at-risk kids, have been my favorite. And so the tragedy is it was an at-risk kid who came into the library on Monday, Chico Library. Thank God he did not have an automatic weapon. And thank God my grandson and his two 12-year-old friends were playing magic toward the back of the library. And they heard shooting, they heard screaming. My grandson called my daughter. She just yelled, "Run, run, run." And they saw someone going out the emergency exit and they ran. And so from what I've heard about trauma, if you can escape on your own and if you're with other people and can talk about it, you're less traumatized. I'm pretty traumatized just by hearing about it, but partly because in a strange way, I mean, I'm not going to say I feel responsible for this kid who was 18 years old. He had just graduated from Chico High School. He apparently was on the autism spectrum, and his father described him as a flower, and which is heartbreaking to me because I'm going to kind of focus on the theme of flowers right now. And here's my journal. I'm always taping flowers into my journal, and I always share that with kids. I've worked with thousands of kids. I've worked in 88 libraries around California. I've worked in hundreds of schools. I have a book called Poem Crazy, Freeing Your Life with Words, that is about all this work, and another one called Fool's Gold. But what I want to start with is, who was it that said something about safe space? What I've learned is if I can create a safe space for these kids, magic happens that is incredibly healing. And so one of the kids in the juvenile hall, with my theme of flowers, there's a poem by a man named Odysseus Elitis. I walked into a garden of night flowers. And in Greek, the word night flower is nichtoleludi. And just by chance, on the board in the juvenile hall that day, I wrote nichtoleludi. It's a long word. I'll show it to you here. Let's see if I can find my marked page. Nichtoleludi. It's probably backwards on the screen. But at any rate, I wrote it on the board, and this little kid, Trey, his name was Trey, which means very in French, T-R-E, sat there the whole first session weeping. He didn't say a word, he just sobbed. And I just let him, and I think he saw by the end of the session, he was safe. And the next session I came in and he said, would you write that word on the board, nichto, nichto? He needed that word because what I said is some of you might be kind of like a night flower. You only feel safe to come out at night. And he said, I said, maybe your feelings are so huge, you don't know what to do with them. Your feelings are so out of bounds that they get you into trouble. And Trey absolutely went crazy in the workshop. And what I decided to do, and Scott, this is what's so interesting, is that I took nonviolent communication and turned it into a way of creating poetry with it. So I feel, but it's hard to just say your feelings. I feel sad, I feel angry. That's such a limitation. You might want to say, I feel like in that photograph, I feel like the cloud that is halfway out of the frame. I'm only halfway there. Or I feel like a little girl wrote about, I feel like a flower petal on the sidewalk that's being stepped on again and again. So imagery and the language of poetry absolutely expands our ability to express our feelings. And so this kid, Trey, he just went crazy with poetry. And I first had them write with I come from, my heart says, my soul says, and then I feel like, bring me, and would you be willing? So Trey wrote, I come from the soul of fire. My heart says there are rings of chances. My soul is suddenly traveling in the lights of time. It seems like my soul is visiting a place that has never been before. And then the next day he wrote, I feel like late afternoon light. I'm a flight of thunder canyons. Bring me an Arctic snow goose on its flight home. Would you be willing to call another breathtaking spring day of rain and snow? We could sleepwalk on the clouds. And his teacher, Louisa, in the hall said he was a kid that had a knife. He would come up to people in Chico and the Bidwell Park and spring a knife on them and ask them for whatever they had. And what they didn't have was poetry. And so I like to think this might have changed him. I don't know. But another girl, and here's the word ticket that I ended up giving. I give word tickets to the kids because This is Piles of Sand. I asked her how she felt, how she was feeling. She said angry. And I said, usually there's something behind anger. Is it sadness? And she said, I asked her to find the feeling. She said, how do you measure sadness? And I wrote, can I write that down? And I gave her the word tickets, tented, windshield, piles of sand. And she wrote, I feel like never-ending anger. My sadness inside grows with each passing day. How do you measure the canyons of emotions hidden deep? The tinted windshield to my eyes is a barrier so no one can see inside. Piles of sand have filled my soul, and the juvenile hall is filled with yellow caution tape. She wrote, there is yellow caution tape surrounding my heart. And so my experience is that when kids get to write this way and express themselves, it changes them and they start to feel hope. And so my thought is this kid, this flower who killed 2 people, if he'd had a way to express himself, I know I'm an idealist. And there are people who talk about reptilians. I don't know, I'm an idealist, but my experience as kids are changed. And here's a kid in the hall who wrote, I'm a brown gangster colliding with death. I'm a rose slamming love with hate. And in that poem, he'd been given those words, collide, slamming. Those were words he wouldn't have had because we need more words than we're given. So I give out word tickets. Here they are. And we collect words. I create these word pools. Here's a word pool that we all created together from, I have them steal words from books of poems. But he wrote, yeah, I'm a brown gangster colliding with death. I'm a rose slamming love with hate. And that showed him that he's a rose. And he saw what he was doing. People approach him with love and he slams it with hate. So that little revelation, I don't know, it may have changed him. And so one other kid in the hall was a gang leader, Jay. He was an Asian gang leader. And he wrote, I feel like a miracle musical sofa. These are all from given words. I'm a million winter lifts because I need an escape from life's mistakes. Bring me award-winning ground, winning ground where stars appear. Would you be willing? Would you be willing to ask who I am? Would you be willing to be a king? Because I need small rivers to drink. So it's just so sad to me that we're taking the arts out of the classroom. I mean, I realized today, Scott, I kind of want to give a TED talk about this. I want teachers to know, to have these tools. I mean, here's another kid, and this was in a continuation school, and then I'll shut up. I could go on for like 3 weeks. And he wrote, I'm a midnight, this continuation high school for kids who've been in the hall. I'm a midnight kind of whatchamacallit. I'm a tube-like beanpole, a holy shirt going smack. I'm a wily, howdy, ho-fling cowboy, an outsider looking in and an insider looking out. I'm a chalk-looking, feeling string, a strum-bumming, humming harmonica, a fancy free flyer. I'm a killin', getting illin', straight chillin' like a villain. I'm a rub-a-dud, turning in the wind, flying nun look-alike. I'm a pre-Roman dust bowl taking tumbleweed. I mean, I like it kind of guy. Anyway, really, for weeks, but thank you for this opportunity. And I just like to think that flower boy possibly could have expressed himself some other way.
Yeah. I'm going to read some of the comments that have come in, Susan, and then turn it over to Diara for a moment. Kendara writes, thank you for sharing this, Susan. Our beloved Bonnie Russell writes, wow. Eleanor Joy writes, you were certainly more than a lovely dancer, Susan. Tim writes, thank you. Eleanor Joy writes, this is very powerful and heart-opening. Shoshana writes, beautiful words can be musings to add colorful light onto the liminal canvas of the imagination. Bonnie writes, canyons of emotions that I'm feeling right now. Um, Carol Craig writes, whatchamacallit, one of my husband's favorite words. He would use that word and it would take a while for me to know what we were discussing sometimes. And Grace Denise writes, Susan, what you are doing is incredible. Ayada writes, my heart, phew, reeling from all the love and all the pain in our aching, wonderful world. So, and I'm sure, more and more people were touched. So thank you, Susan, for taking this very painful experience and squeezing the lemons and making lemonade out of it. And Tiara, I turn it over to you.
Susan, thank you, Scott. Susan, that was absolutely beautiful. And having worked in the juvenile hall and the camps for many, many years, I know the heartbreak and the joy when you touch the souls and you see them open and you nurture them and feel the blossoming. You can feel the love in the room. It becomes palpable. And I also know the heartbreak of those that we can't reach, the ones that we miss. And just so beautiful, the words and the expression. And when I read about what had happened, and so grateful for your boys. And of course, we'll say prayers for everyone involved. And
Beaming in live from Northeast.
there's cornflower. And just as you mentioned the young flower who had no other way to express or to want to achieve power. I had an experience when Columbine happened. I met Daryl Scott, the father of Rachel Scott, who was the first student shot at Columbine. And it was extraordinary how he held his presence and went into forgiveness. And I had an experience when I was in session with someone, and the souls of the two boys came to me to ask for forgiveness and said, what about us? And so just touching your tender heart and blessing you and all those that do this holy work with the kids that are hurting so much. And just thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your presence.
And I do just want to say he did belong to something called the Columbine fandom. Do you believe that that's out there? So our job is to be the opposite.
Absolutely. And when I saw that, I thought of the young man, and I know we're going to talk in a minute about this vision that I had about the divine masculine, and I think it's all connected. That our young men, our men are craving a way to express power and virility, and may we know how to serve.
It's human nature that we all want to belong to a tribe. We're blessed. We're all part of the Unity Earth Tribe and the Global Peace Tribe, which is about peace and community and inspiration and hope. And sometimes people just in desperation to belong to a tribe where the habits or the focus is not so healthy. Or even, the tribe of honoring the Columbine two students, like what they did was something heroic. Um, so it's pick your tribe. Last thing I'll say for now is for 11 years, I ran a camp at Jane Fonda's Ranch in Santa Barbara, much earlier in my life. And we brought out a lot of young people up from Compton and Watts, which are the inner city areas. And it was amazing to watch these kids were gang kids. I mean, they had terrible things done to them, and some of them had done terrible things. But they would come up to this camp, and once they dropped into our hippie rainbow love vibe, they would just like be so relieved that, oh my God, there's another kind of a tribe to be a part of. There's another, a way to be other than that scene that I've kind of had to be in down on the streets. So it's
That's
Yeah.
so true, Scott. I was working in juvie, and I had a classroom full of boys, and I was teaching "Love is Letting Go of Fear" as my text. And we would read from that, and the guys softened so much that I got a donation of stuffed animals. And all these hardcore gang members had these stuffed animals on their desk, and it was like such a place of safety for love that they could let that guard down and have that be. So thank you for reminding me of that.
Mm. Well, you had a vision, Dear. Do you want to share that?
Sure. And it's interesting you mentioned Jane Fonda. I had this vision just 2 days ago. I'm going to go to Gallery View. And it surprised me. I saw this just divine goddess like kneeling at the feet of her beloved. And it was so tender and so I want to say docile and it surprised me because I'm someone that was lucky enough to be raised on the shoulders of these amazing women. I was looking at Eleanor Joy put in the chat earlier that she had wanted her mom to know interdependence, but her mother was fiercely independent. And we had Jane Fonda and Gloria Steinem as role models, and coming from a place of moving into power of the divine feminine and power in the workplace. And so this vision of what could have been considered not servitude, but indifference to the divine masculine, and yet it was so sweet and tender. And I had to log that. And in the tarot, there's that one card of the image of the divine masculine kneeling at the feet of his beloved. And so it got me thinking about this spiral of matriarchy and patriarchy. And throughout history, we've had different societies where one is in power and the other one is not. And this, of course, goes across all realms. But I think that we're reaching another level of the spiral. All the work that we've done here and elsewhere about embracing the divine feminine and Mary Magdalene, and just really honoring that. And now it's time that some of our cups are full, that we can then turn to nurture the divine masculine. I remember when restorative practices was first coming in, and people of minorities were being gifted voice and more power. And as it happens sometimes, when one faction rises, another one sometimes loses place. And I saw the look on this one white gentleman's face in this circle when some women were really expressing their feelings, and it was directed in a not so nice way toward the prototype, the stereotype of the not so divine masculine. And this man was so hurt. And I could tell that he had devoted his whole life to, an advocate for equality and an advocate for women. And so I thought to myself, why is it when we raise one, we must always keep lifting the others? And so I saw this spiral, and I'm looking forward to when we can talk more about the divine masculine. And that's, of course, as we know in our tribe, in all of us, we have divine feminine and divine masculine. And I wanted to give a shout out to the Love Coach Relationship Mastery course, if I might. Scott and Katrina are doing this amazing course. As brilliant as Scott is here, what I'm experiencing with him in this course is absolutely phenomenal. And Katrina as his partner, and I'm going to bring you on with me because I'm feeling a little shy. And since I have
Okay.
the power to do that, I'm gonna. This course is opening access to the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and giving us tools to translate it into all of our relationships. And I highly recommend anyone who's interested in exploring that aspect of themselves and bringing these tools to open their hearts. When Scott announces the next round, go ahead and register. And as soon as you register, magic will happen. And I know that this vision is part of what you and Katrina are bringing into the world as divine love, divine coaching for love. And I honor our beloved men in this tribe. I honor our beloved women. I honor the love that we are co-creating. And I'll save the rest for prayer time. Thank you so much for allowing me to share.
Oh, well, thank you. I did not know you were going to do a plug for our relationship mastery course, so thank you. And if anybody is interested, we teach it every Saturday. Today we taught a great class this morning. We're going to take a little 2-week break, and then we're going to come back with 8 more weeks starting on July 18th. And so people can still register either class by class, or you can actually get the recordings of the previous classes. And it truly is relationship mastery. Between Katrina and myself, we have coached over 1,000 couples and families. I've been doing this for 25 years. We started the Love Coach Academy together when my wife passed away. So we have a lot of history. And yeah, this is actually kind of what both of us do best in the world. Hosting this show is my hobby. Coaching is my profession. So anyway, thank you for that, Diara. And we are now going to go to our beloved Omashar for our second of 3 Omashar offerings. And then we've got a really powerful final hour planned. Here's Omashar.
Yes, here is Omashar, and I thought we were going to go in a different direction, so I wasn't quite ready, but I don't care because that's how I roll.
Did I mess up the agenda? I thought
No, you didn't
Oh.
mess it up at all. We were just rolling with it, and the funny thing is, I've been a defender, let's say, of the divine feminine my whole life, not really knowing what I was doing. And however, as I evolve, I'm seeing where my conditioning is still with women and not the divine feminine with myself, because I realize in spirit land there is no gender, and so ultimately we are both male and female within our souls and spirits. But what is happening with me now is that I'm consciously inviting the divine feminine to open my heart, because I realize that there's a little M&M the candy shell around my heart, which has just protected me, and I've been able to host my love vibe. However, it's time for a complete expansion. And I've even got a photo on my wall of buffalo calf woman. And so anytime I think a thought that is in any way derogative towards the feminine, my mind just goes straight to my buffalo calf woman, and she keeps me in check, because the things that we were discussing, for instance, on the relationship thingamajig with this morning, was all of these veils and all of these background programs which run. And so you'll come into a situation with the opposite sex or whatever, and even if you have the greatest intent within your heart, this program can start running. And if you don't kind of put a cap on it and reprogram yourself, it'll still run. And so there's a plug for Buffalo Calf Woman. She rocks, and I'm humble in her sight. And so with that, I think I've done a good cue, and give me a moment to do this. Are we ready?
Are we ready?
We are ready.
human. We've been taking it for granted that our lives will stay the same, our comfort will remain. Yet we know now the world is really changing. So we take each other's hands and reveal the promised land. Courage flowing through our veins, showing us the way to surrender into the sacred fire. What no longer serves us all, so no more do we recall. And we all stand up, and we all stand tall, and the world will change as we heed the call. Remember, life is in your own hands, but the time to sit alone on your comfortable throne, it's over. Together we can make it. Bring back that Eden of the past, let it shine through our hearts, and we all stand up, and we all stand tall, and the world will change as we heed the call. And we all stand up, and we all stand tall, and the world will change as we heed the call. Yes, we all stand up. Yes, we all stand tall. Yes, the world will change as we heed the call. Here we go.
And we do all stand tall together. Thank you, beloved brother Omashar. Thank you for that. And our beautiful dancers. We had so many people dancing. I couldn't catch all on the screen. It was amazing, and happy to see some new friends dancing. So thank you very, very much. And it all began with Eleanor Joy and Reverend Jeffrey. So, and Pam and Liv, I love watching you two dance together. That's really, really fun. So it's beautiful how we keep evolving. Thank you, brother. All right. Well, we're now going to shift into kind of the last major segment of tonight's show. And of course, we've been covering really for years what's happening with Making Contact. Of course, Alan Steinfeld is a regular co-host, and he wrote the book Making Contact. I just had dinner last night with JJ and Desiree Hertok here in Sedona, and actually was sharing with them. We were comparing our notes and our perceptions of this very extraordinary event that happened on Thursday in Washington, D.C. It took place in one of the most hallowed halls, if you will, of D.C., with a lot of history of amazing things that have taken place in that particular room. And many of the leading whistleblowers and leaders in the disclosure movement all came together to share very important information. I'm not going to say too much more because our next guest, who we're going to be conversing with for the next probably 45 minutes, was there. And he is one of the founders of UApedia. I need to go put on my UApedia t-shirt that I proudly wear. And by the way, uapedia.ai, we'll show it in a moment, is the place to go to get extraordinary information about what's really going on. Eduardo Mace, I so appreciate what this man writes and reviews, provides. I've been in the field for 40 years, and so I'm pretty skeptical. And Eduardo really has a great eye and ear for presenting things and giving us little clue as to the, what would be the right word? The validity of this particular program. So I want to share with you a little bit about who Eduardo is. Again, he's the co-founder and editor of uapedia.ai. He's also an experiencer, a serial entrepreneur, a software pioneer, and a media publisher. He has over 30 plus years building digital platforms that merge editorial rigor, AI, and storytelling for market consumption. And I'm so glad that you're putting your attention into really the most important conversation of our time here in humanity, really recognizing we are not alone, we have not been alone, and disclosure is happening. So welcome to the awakening world, Eduardo.
Thank you very much, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm so infused by everybody singing and dancing. This was so lovely. Thank you so much for that. It's very uplifting.
You know, it's important with all the deep conversation to then move and lighten it up. And I think it's one of the things that makes our show a little bit unique. Please tell us about what you experienced on Thursday.
So the event unfolded in a Senate office building, very well known, the Russell office building, very close to the Capitol building. And in the Kennedy Caucus room, which is a historic room where, you know, they did the Watergate hearings and a number of very important events happen in that room. And under the auspices of the Senate, the Disclosure Foundation organized this event with Congress representative, senators, and the leading voices for disclosure, both in the private sector, but also whistleblowers. So we had a multitude of very famous people in this area, starting with Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, going into, you know, the whistleblowers. So Matthew Brown, Dylan Borland, Jeffrey Nuccitelli. These were all people who have come up and, you know, put their lives at stake, literally, denouncing the hidden technologies and the hidden beings and the truth, right, that has been kept from the American public and the world around the unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UFO of old, but now it's no. So the forum was all about how do we process humanity and legislation and government at the edge of discovery, right? We're about to know truths that will transform society. So Chris Mellon pointed out that ignorance or the lack of truth, right, is not a national security strategy. It can't be, right? You can't build a government and an electorate and a democratic system without transparency and truth. So that was very decisive of him. And he started telling exactly what's going on, with these Air Force base incursions by UFOs. So one of the main revelations there was that it's the El Paso. There's a big Air Force base close to El Paso in Texas. And during 17 days, they had thousands of UFOs and UAPs basically hovering over the Air Force base. And they couldn't do anything about it. And it's being kept hidden because obviously they don't want to lose face. But beyond that, it's, there is no action without transparency, right? You can't ask Congress to vote on, the National Defense Act if they don't know what's happening. They need to know what's happening. So this is a moment where, Senator Rounds put it very clearly. We have to look at disclosure as an architecture. So what does that mean in terms of laws? What does that mean in terms of accountability? Where is national security in all this? But most of all, how to make this public without, with all these frameworks in place, right? So we had Ana Paulina Luna, a big advocate for transparency and disclosure. We had Eric Burleson. We had Andre Carlson. Tim Burchett was honored. And they all spoke out as to what they're doing, where they're finding information. There's a lot more to come out from the American government on this. There's talk everywhere of very important disclosures coming, both in terms of biologics, but also in terms of how the US is handling the reverse engineering of the crafts they've been in possession of for the last 80 years. So that's all part of the talk. So it's not about is UAP real or not anymore. It's about what is the process around, behind all this. Louis Elizondo got an award there for his early actions in 2017 around the UAP disclosure, initiative, and now a movement, right? We had a panel led by Gadi Schwartz from NBC. This is NBC wouldn't let Gadi Schwartz run with the subject a year ago. Now he's actually moderating a panel, with both staff members, but also with whistleblowers and other journalists. So it was good to see. I mean, the health. I mean, one thing that they did put out in this security and defense panel with Gadi Schwartz and Chris Mellon again, Kirk McConnell, Rear Admiral Timothy Gallaudet, and Marek von Reinenkamp, was that it's not necessarily about knowing or not knowing about aliens. It's about making sure that we know how to relate to what's happening. Because when you see all these drones over military bases, it's very worrying for the military and for they don't know how to react because and they need some sort of framework to sort of work through this, both in terms of defense strategy, but also in terms of communication. How do we communicate that we don't want these things here, right? Over military bases, that is, right? So after that panel, Senator Mike Rounds came on and he talked about, what would be the legislative activity and initiatives that would need to be in place for you to have full disclosure. So he mentioned, again, the UAP Disclosure Act, meaning protection of whistleblowers that come forward, he mentioned the NDAA, right? The National Defense Authorization Act, and how that needs to change, not only in terms of verbatim, in terms of accepting these new terminologies, but also in terms of oversight. Where did the money go? What new money is there for this? Who's responsible? So he highlighted that there needs to be a records review board, much like the JFK review board that was put forward, some 5-6 years ago. And he warned also that there is a lot of politics inside the government. I mean, interagency politics, intercommittee politics, staff members that don't feel that this is relevant. So there's an ongoing fight towards, we have to take this seriously, right? But we shouldn't expect it to be a sprint. We should expect it to be a marathon. So this was Mike Rounds, Senator Mike Rounds. Then we had a panel about science and investigation with Avi Loeb and Hal Puthoff, led by all people, Kristen Fisher, who used to be at Fox, now a big influencer in YouTube, and she's got her own production company. And they basically same old, we need more data, but they were talking about the right posture, right? The right posture, meaning how should scientists approach this? It's not with ridicule, it's with curiosity. It's with, accepting that they don't know everything, right? I don't know is you need some humility in the sciences to accept that maybe, they don't know everything. We also had, just after that, we had Dr. Carlos Eyre, a PhD in history and religious studies. He talked about, religion has long dealt with encounters involving non-human intelligences, right? And that's the motif that these religions sell, is basically these encounters with these non-human intelligences. And he said, this is more or less what's happening with UAP, in the sense that, it is both miracle testimonies and UAP testimonies share the same problem, the one of believability. It's so out there that people don't know how to react. And he feels that science may tell us what's happening, but only the humanities can tell us what it means, right? There's a big exploration area. But he believes that, it won't destroy faith. It might rupture worldviews, but it won't destroy faith. It will renew faith. That's his belief. And this was put together so that you could build a framework of processes around disclosure to make sure it's safe to disclose, right? So here's Carlos Eyre. He talked to the Catholic Church. He talked to several other religions, and they were all in tune already with his thoughts, meaning they're ready. They're not being caught by surprise, which is great.
I want to come in for a moment, because
Sure.
that is such an important part of this. Eduardo, I was producing nationally broadcast television shows about UFOs, and that was before we called them UAPs, back in the mid-90s. And always the general consensus was the reason there wasn't disclosure because the Catholic Church was afraid of how it would shake up its power base and its membership. Now, of course, I think now we know that it's more the military-industrial complex that's stopping things, because they want to hold on to the technology and the incredible financial value of the technology.
Right.
But what a blessing, both in the Spielberg film, which did a beautiful job of addressing the Catholic consideration, and then what you just shared. So I just wanted to come in for a moment, because that is a really huge piece of opening the door for disclosure to take place. And by the way, I'm now wearing my
Yeah, thank you.
media t-shirt with pride.
Looks good on you.
Yeah, thank you. Were there other thoughts and comments, reflections, either at the conference or that you've picked up about how organized religion is preparing and embracing for this?
So there was, I mean, there was stuff around the ontological shock and how that affects people's belief, not so much faith, religious faith, but it's the main takeaway there was reconciliation, meaning worldviews will have to change to reconcile with a universe that's full of life instead of a universe that's kind of dead, and we are the only ones. So in that sense, considering that it might be true, and I mean, I say might because there is no definitive proof yet, but I'm pretty sure there is, that this life has been around us and visiting us for a very long time. And so maybe these religions need to take into account that some of the events that have happened and were formative for the religions also comes from, these meetings with these non-human intelligences, right? These higher beings, right? These more illumined beings that maybe have been here all along helping us, but maybe come from other realms, right? And then the ontological shock talks about that construction of a new reality as a reconciliation. How do I reconcile? And the church, from what I gathered from one of the things that Chris Mellon said, is that the churches already have, especially the main ones, they already have a good notion of how to relay this into different kind of frameworks so that they benefit from it, meaning they expand their believers' awareness through this truth, right? I can't say much more because Carlos Zeri said a lot, but we had a lot of sound issues during the event. So it was hard to sort of hear him. He was speaking really, really low. So that's more or less what went on, Scott, with regards to religion.
You know what I'm loving about this is that we're so past the believers versus non-believers. Is it real, not real? We're now in the stage of, okay, we're really laying the groundwork on all the different levels. How are we going to deal with it in religion? How are we going to deal with it in the media? How are we going to deal with the ontological shock? We are now in the really preparing for and integrating this extraordinary new information into our world. And humanity has a lot of history of this. I mean, it's indigenous people when Europeans arrived in America, and 100 other examples of when people living in one tribe or country or culture, all of a sudden another culture or another tribe showed up, and it was like, oh my God, there are dark-skinned people, there are red-skinned people, there are white-skinned people. Well, now we get insectoids, Nordics, grays, and a whole lot more.
Right. It's much more diverse than we thought, right?
And more diverse than our human brains can really comprehend. All right, please continue with more of what took place.
So we had, after the ontological shock presentation, we had a very interesting panel with Mike Gold from, he's an ex-NASA director, with two scientists from MIT, and they discussed, how ready are these instruments that we use to detect all this? But they mentioned one thing that really caught my eye was that they mentioned that NASA already has this in their archives, not proof per se, but they have a lot of these recordings and sensor data that they picked up on the moon and around the Earth doing their flights, but nobody has actually dug deep into them because NASA, even though it's public information, it's hard to find. right? They put it out, and so they put together a group just to collect the NASA data and go through it, as you know, with expert tooling, and make the connections. Oh, so this is an effort started off by citizen scientists, but which they want the government funding, the NSF, National Science Foundation, to fund. And I believe they're at the very end of getting that funding to make sure that this NASA data that's already sitting there waiting for people to go through it can show us how this has evolved over the years. So they mentioned Beatriz Villarroel, study on transients, all these objects orbiting Earth. I don't know if you know about this, but there's about 50,000 objects orbiting Earth that we don't know what they are. And she proved this with rigorous science. It's peer-reviewed. It's been confirmed now thrice by other scientists with other data sets. It is true. And we just don't know what these 50,000 objects circling Earth are. They've been circling Earth since the 1950s, before humans went to space. So they've opened up the discussion much more broadly regarding how to, through technology, prove and come to terms with what you find. The last panel, well, not the last panel, but the one before last, was about financial impacts, meaning what are the risks and opportunities? And basically, they were saying that there will be adjustments in a lot of sectors, but in truth, the technology to go to market takes so long that industries will adapt. The Dow Jones index companies that were part of the index 20 years ago aren't the same ones that are there today, basically. So things change. And this is just another phase for the financial markets. It might change energy, but it's going to take 20 to 30 years to produce and distribute. It might change, sensors and defense, but then again, same thing. So there's nothing new really in terms of finance, and the risks and the opportunities are there. But the risks are already kind of part of the game, right? You're just changing one technology for the other. On the last piece, which was for me the most interesting of all, was that at the very end, instead of closing off the forum, the Disclosure Foundation granted $10,000 to an enterprise founded by whistleblowers. So Matthew Brown, Dylan Borland, Jeffrey Nucciatelli formed a company to receive proceeds from donations and maybe other interested parties, so that they can lead a more healthy life after their whistleblowing. Because what they're faced when they started their whistleblowing was basically they've lost their jobs, nobody would hire them, they were cast out, even though they were telling the truth. And so now they're starting to get to terms with that, with this new company. We offered to help as well at UApedia, because we have a lot that we could do together with them. But one thing that caught my eye was that, the credibility of disclosure will depend on how you treat the people who come forward with the information that's needed, right? And one of the most interesting things they did was they called Whitley Strieber to the stand as an homage, to the experiencers. And so that was very powerful. Whitley Strieber mentioning that this is the first time he's been to a public gathering where he hasn't been laughed out of stage, right? And so he welcomes the change and saying we're going to become a cosmic civilization. So everybody left in a very positive tone. Overall, as a conclusion to the event, it was clear to me that disclosure is a process. So you need laws, you need archives, you need communication, you need to revisit some cultural elements, you need to revisit religion, but mainly this was about trust. There is no disclosure without trust, but the trust has to be restored. And that's part of what the government needs to do with transparency, but also, making it compatible with national security, of course, reconciling this and treating these opposites as if they're compatible, right? How to do that. Provide evidence standards, so that you take away the stigma and mature these scientific experiments around this, or at least allow people to come forward with what they have already found, right? Because there's a lot that has already been investigated and tested and developed. And most of all, it's about preparing the public, right? With a resilient infrastructure, and not try to avoid a public relations game, right? In all this. So it's I felt it was a very responsible, tone to the whole disclosure forum. And I was really taken aback by how, all these people, we had dozens of politicians, and I don't know, 400 people there, of which about 200 were leading voices in this field. So everybody was very kind of together and praising the initiative.
You mentioned Whitley Strieber, and we did a show way back in 1996 or 7 when I was working on the Paranormal Borderline. We interviewed Whitley, and that was when Communion had just come out.
Oh, Jesus.
And for experiencers such as yourself, such as Whitley, and thousands of others, the shift between the Disclosure Day movie and that now this is being taken seriously is huge, because for so long, experiencers were laughed at, were thought to be crazy. They couldn't tell their story because they didn't want people to think they were nuts. And so it's an extraordinary shift. And because you are an experiencer,
Right.
I just want to acknowledge that. And I want to ask you if you'd be willing to share personally, what's it like for you, your journey? I don't know when your experiences took place, but what's it been like for you going from being on the fringe to now being
So
accepted?
I've always been in, publishing in general, software publishing, media publishing, and I always had a very kind of evidence-based scientific approach. I praised, even though I love sci-fi, I praised all the science behind it, right? And about 3 years ago, when I had a contact, and then multiple contacts after that, it made me challenge my view of reality. And that's when I opened up, and I became more aware, more sensitive, a better human in general, right? And I don't think anybody that has been an experiencer comes away having lost something. We all lose something. But what we become, I believe, something better, something that's actually more open, more loving, more giving, and above all, more understanding, right? Let the fear go. Is, some people have a hard time, but that's my learnings from my experiencers. I had to let a lot of fear go. I had to focus on, the positive aspects and lead a life that actually had a purpose. And I think that's more or less where experiences go. I mean, not all, obviously, but a huge part of them say, even if you take the John Mack polls that he did way back then in the 90s, I think, they basically portray a very positive attitude towards the experiencer after the experiences itself, right?
Yeah, I was just reading some of the comments that have come in, so I apologize. But there's a lot of comments, of course, that are coming in now from our audience. Um, uh, Eleanor Joy writes, in my observation over the years, most people take a long time to shift their consciousness, and a few pioneers lead the way with much rebuttal. We just have to practice patience and hold the space in the quantum field for truth to emerge. I'm definitely not one of the pioneers and appreciate programs like this to help move me along. And I've got a couple of questions that have come in for you that I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to read a couple more comments. Liz Connors, who's been a guest on the show, I have a lot of respect for Liz, writes, the environments are changing. We mostly need to trust the information we receive and feel in our bones, honing our resonance. Micro of the macro, when our inner environment is trusting and supportive, we can have that mirrored back to us. It is important that we project a clean slate on our more 5D supported path. Divinity can flow through and allow many miracles if we begin by believing in miracles. Beautifully put. Tarina Joy from Ecuador writes, polls show that 90% of Americans demand transparency, and the public is resilient enough to handle disclosure without mass panic. Seems like this UAP Disclosure Symposium confirmed that the disclosure bottleneck is no longer public maturity or scientific interest, but the main agendas and interests clashing not only in the United States, but globally, especially with the exponential AI advances and revelations. So here's a question.
Right.
First of three questions that we have for you, Eduardo. What will help us most to go beyond the current disclosure into conscious contact, communication, and collaboration with our advanced non-human intelligence?
Well, I discussed a lot with other people, on the corridors there between the panels and before and after the event. And there's the dependency on government isn't a good thing. So maybe we could start an open contact movement, right? I mean, CE5 is already kind of that, right? But I think we can extend it because there are multiple contact modalities, and there's nowhere. The government doesn't necessarily need to be involved with contacts with NHI, right? It's just that they have more scientific information, and they have been at it for longer than we have individually. But I think that the process for this conscious contact, communications, and collaboration is to do this in an open manner, sometimes with the help of other people, sometimes by yourself. You can do that. There is no holding back the human potential.
Beautiful, thank you. All right, there's some other questions that have come in. Susan Bloomquist asks, I wonder if there will be a place where any experiencer can just say what happened. Are there any public forums like that? Which
yeah, there are. I mean, NUFORC, MUFON have forums for experiencers. They're not 100% guaranteed to get a space, but they'll be able to tell their story without ridicule. We are thinking of developing something ourselves regarding that allows people to have, instead of, because NUFORC and MUFON are very nuts and bolts organizations, right? We need something that coalesces the experiencers. And we believe there are millions and millions of them around the globe. And they don't have literally representation. They don't. So we feel that we might be able to do something. That's what I'm talking to the whistleblowers about. So Matthew Brown, Dylan Borland, Jeffrey Nuccitelli, they're all experiencers. But how Puthoff, of all people, how Puthoff said he was an experiencer? Can you believe that?
Wow.
So there's many more experiences than we know, and some of them come because of religious backgrounds. Some of them come through contact with NHI directly. Some come through abductions, but it doesn't really matter. The important thing is to have that safe space, where they can congregate and talk about their experiences. And I think that's, even though you do have MoveFawn and NewFork, I think there's a space for a new platform for experiences.
Okay. People are wondering if you would be willing to share some of your contact experiences. Is that something you'd be willing to do?
Yeah, I'm very hesitant to do so, even though I shouldn't be. Put my money where my mouth is. But it's I started having contact in my house, in my bedroom, with orbs, and it just progressed from there. I mean, we had all series of paranormal events in my house, and one of the things that I did was I started to, for 6 months with paranormal events in my house, I started having trouble understanding what was going on. But once I decided not to be afraid, everything turned. And then I started to realize that I had developed sensitivities that I didn't have before. And then I started exploring the world, and I did what Jacques Vallée mentioned in Passport to Magonia. I decided to test the folklore and the cultural and mythic beliefs to see if they were real or not. And there was stuff there. So I went to Europe, visited mythic locations, and I could sense the presence and meet some of them. And it was quite extraordinary to be able to validate that kind of thought that Jacques Vallée had, that is all tied together, right? The UAP, the paranormal, and the myths of old, and maybe even religion, right? So I'll leave it at that, because it gets very complicated after.
Sure.
I don't think this is the forum for that.
Sure. You have put on 2 beautiful conventions, UAP cons, both of which can be found at UApedia, which we're going to go take a look at your website in a moment. But one of the things that I've really loved about the conventions you've put together, Eduardo, is the focus has been on how is this impacting our consciousness. It's not just about, I saw lights in the sky, but people really sharing, like you just did, how having these experiences, which, although the experiences are incredibly diverse, the commonality is high strangeness, and it forces us to change or expand our perspective of what's possible. It breaks us out of whatever bubble we've been in, a religious bubble, a belief system bubble, a cultural bubble. It gets us out of there. And I think that that's something you've done a wonderful job of really helping us to focus on and to understand, is this is all raising our consciousness. I was listening kind of in anticipation of today's conversation with you. This morning, I was listening to an in-depth recent conversation with my friend and colleague, Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar.
Yeah.
And
love him, love Bashar.
And I've known Daryl for 40 years. I first met him back in the 80s. So, a lot of us have been on this journey for a long, long time. And in essence, my understanding from what Daryl said was that he really believes that at some level, our galactic family have been actually pulling the strings to raise our consciousness. And yes, there's the human involvement and the human, trying to block it. But there is a real effort from a much from an intelligence that's so much more evolved than we are. You know, they may be hundreds or even thousands, or perhaps even more years evolved. So it's impossible for us to imagine their consciousness. And I
Right.
think Spielberg spoke to that. By now, I think most people have seen the Disclosure Day movie. And I like how Spielberg addressed that. And then at the very end, almost the punchline is that we learn that it's this being that actually had kind of orchestrated the mass disclosure to take place. So I just want to stop there for a moment and ask how that lands for you, and as this person who's gathering all this information through UApedia, what are your thoughts about how Spielberg presented it and what I just shared?
Yeah. Well, thank you for those lovely comments about UAPCon 1 and 2. And I'd like to give a shout out to the team and my co-founders, Tara, Alan Steinfeld, and Tim Spinney, and our staff and team, for helping out with these two wonderful events that tied consciousness to the unidentified anomalous phenomena. And we've been honored with such tremendous guests, But back to your final question, I mean, the Disclosure Day movie is a movie about how, well, first of all, there's a lot of truth in the movie, right? From what we gathered and from what researchers have found over the last decades, it's all there. Spielberg did a good research, and I like how he framed it, that empathy wins, right? I mean, the humans have a capability, even though only two there were extraordinary because of their experiences. Humans have the same capabilities. They just haven't developed them. And I think that's kind of one of the takeaways that I did in the review, a pre-review I did of the movie for UApedia. We focused on, how important it is for people to understand that these abductions are real, that this is something that has real consequences, and some of them are positive and some of them are negative, but most of the time they are changes in the person with regards to how they go through life, right? How they see life. And it's important for other people to know that they're energetic beings that are capable of a lot more than we thought possible before. And I think the movie portrays that a bit. I mean, it tries to tie it to contact and, but it's not. I mean, it's everybody. Everybody on Earth has the same capabilities. You just have to unlock them.
Beautiful. I really appreciate that. And there's so many comments that have come in. Definitely want to acknowledge Danny Sheehan, who's a regular on this show, is doing talks every Sunday at 12 noon Pacific time. I really encourage everybody to participate in that. And the link to that Zoom room has been put into the chat box a few times. And we are now going to take a look at this wonderful website that Eduardo is the editor of. So everybody, it's uapedia.ai, uapedia.ai. And it's an amazing place. There are so many articles. Every time I go there, I just get lost in all the articles, all the perspectives. And a lot of people, of course, you've seen all these people on our show. Alan Steinfeld, probably every 6 weeks. Dr. Tara has been on many times, Tim Spinney. And it's just a wonderful way to be, really, if you want a one-stop shop, because they update us with the latest information. Eduardo had put a beautiful article in here about what just took place on Thursday. So you can get the latest news. You can also get highlights. It's the place to go.
And it's updated daily, right? Daily updated.
Updated daily. And how many articles do you have now?
Well, we have 512 articles. I mean, these are long articles. They're in-depth reviews of the major cases, subjects, and some very current stuff. We also started to digitize the Alan Steinfeld archives, which is gaining huge traction because he's got all these gems that people he interviewed in 20, 30 years ago. So we're very grateful to Alan for letting us digitize his archives.
Beautiful. Shoshana, I see you've got your hand raised. We're getting low on time, but I'm going to go ahead and bring you up if you have a question. Do you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yes, I'll try to make it quick. For all of us that are into galactic and ETs, I would imagine that sometimes when people are contacted, it's something that sort of expands your multi-dimensional quantum continuum of how you multi-sensory experience, right? And then we realize we have higher selves and we are maybe that some of those beings are our future selves. This is time bending, but I'm imagining there's some experiences where people find their own star families or have a resonance with a particular ET, star tribe in the ecology of the landscape. And I'm just mentioning that it's probably a big conversation, but if there's anything very short that you want to say about it, would be interesting.
Yeah, we've had a lot of researchers come up to us and offer all their research for this kind of thing. What are the modalities of contact and what are the types of experiences that happen? What are the effects? Some people relate just what you said, they find their higher self. And it's a recurring theme, really. It's not, these are people who have never met. They're telling the same story again and again and again. So yeah, and about the star families, there is a lot of evidence that supports both multidimensional, as you mentioned, but also some localities like star systems as being their homes, right? So there's a lot of that going on. I mean, I don't know how much we can prove. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you have that knowledge, and it's your individual self and the collective understanding that this is possible, and it is. And that's what we found in the research, right? The research points us in that direction, even though people don't say that in public because it's hard to prove. There is more and more testimony around the same kind of areas you just described, right? With, star seeds, star people, star families, right?
Thank you so much.
You always have the best background, Shoshana, that big rose. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Eduardo. We
Thank you.
are going to go to our prayer time next. But I'd love to, just like we have Alan periodically with Making Contact, I'd love to have you and or Tim, maybe once a month even, just giving the update of what's because it's all happening so fast.
That's right. We'd love to. I mean, maybe we can get, 1 month Tim, 1 month me, share a bit, because we are all very involved in all this, and it takes a tribe to make a difference, right?
Yeah. It's beautiful. And thank you so much for what you're doing. By the way, everybody, it's free to go to UAPD. Of course, join and help support them, but they also, the initial site is free. But I do encourage you to support them, please. And go back and watch the 2 conventions, online conventions they did, because, I'm kind of a snob. I've been around this world for a really, really long time. And Eduardo, I was hooked. Each one of your presenters they were saying things I had not heard before. They were presenting perspectives I had not heard before. And I learned a lot. And it takes a bit for me to learn a lot in this field. So
I'm glad.
You guys
Thank you, Scott, for all your support and all you've done. Thank you.
Absolutely. And let's all get our UAPedia t-shirts.
Right. I got mine here. Oops.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. God bless you.
Cheers. God bless.
Ah, what a show. We are going to go to our prayer time with Diara, and then we'll close out with an Omashar song. And here is our dear Diara.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you, Eduardo, for trusting us enough to share your experience. We so value that. And as always, we traverse the universe and beyond in just one evening. We started with our beautiful World Unity Week, our beloved brothers and sisters in Unity Earth, with our feet on our beloved Mother Gaia, and then traversing through the difficulties as human beings as we're still learning how to own our power and come into ourselves, and all the beautiful work that's being done to mitigate the difficulties. And then through beautiful music, and now traversing in the stars. And as always, we know that we're expanding our capacity to hold it all, to open our minds, to increase and elevate our consciousness, our ability to understand and be open to what's beyond. And again, at the same time, we bring it back down into our beautiful human bodies. And we know at this time, many people are experiencing the effects of this expansion of consciousness, this expansion of our light bodies. And so we offer our prayers to those who may be suffering, may be in pain, may be clearing dis-easement, that may be incorporating cellular changes, viral changes. So we're blessing our beautiful human bodies as cosmic beings. And breathing into that, we can feel the light expanding, we can feel the love expanding, we can feel health, vitality, and peace inside our own beautiful universe. And then, as always, we share that out, extending that out, reaching our hands out to those who are ready to grasp and hold on, and we bring them in, into our tribes, into our hearts. And prayers, as always, for our specific members in our tribe. Prayers for those who have yet to understand that there is so much beyond what can be seen. And we ask for our sensitivities to expand, our ability to embrace the subtle energies. And we do that with tender hearts and lots of love. And as always, embracing the cosmic children that are here now and those that are ready to come in. Oh, I can feel them. And we promise that they will recognize us and we will see them. We will hold them in love and light. So thank you, Scott. Thank you to our beautiful tribe. Thank you to all our presenters, all the beloveds in the room. And so it is.
And as always, let's go to gallery view and have a minute or two of silence where everybody can pray for whatever they are aware of, that it might be personal. Certainly, we want to pray for what's happening down in Venezuela. Over 1,400 have died, 50,000 are missing, 3,300 injured. Thank you, Dorina Joy, for reminding us of that. So maximum grace for the people in Venezuela, maximum grace for each and every one of us with whatever challenges we might be facing. And let's have a moment of silence. Thank you, Deora. Before we go to Omashar, I just want to make a couple of more announcements. I want to remind people that we have a really powerful Sacred Sunday show taking place tomorrow. Our friends Rama and Alexander, who travel all over the world, have put together a really special program. So it's going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And I will put the link to this program into the chat box. And for any of you that are watching on Facebook or YouTube and you want to join us tomorrow, come join the Global Peace Tribe and you'll automatically get all the Zoom room links, including for tomorrow's Sacred Sunday show. And to remind you that you can join the Global Peace Tribe. It's very, very easy. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com. globalpeacetribe.com. Click register for the new season. That takes you to our registration page. And now is the time. We're just starting our new season next week, next Wednesday. And next week's shows on Wednesday night, we're going to be honoring the work of Piper Dellums and the work she does with young people. And then a week from tonight, which happens to be the 4th of July, we're going to do a show on the science of manifesting. And we have an extraordinary fellow, Dr. Larry Fuller, who is going to be teaching us the science of manifesting miracles. I did an interview with him yesterday. He blew my socks off. And I'm really excited. You're going to love him. So next Saturday it's going to be a very powerful, very different, not a lot of guests, but a really focused experience for all of us to really practice manifesting and learning the science of manifesting. As always, I'll send out an email with the descriptions and the new links. All of you will receive an email with the new links that are registered. And so please, everybody, make sure that you register so that you don't miss a show, because we've got great shows coming up. And of course, the highlight of our shows, for many of you, certainly for me, is Omashar, our beloved house musical artist. And here he is.
Let me shine a light inside. And I'll show you where your truth resides. Lift your eyes up to the skies, and I'll prove to you that nothing dies. Together we will rise again, and we'll make amends for what we've done. So let me take your hands in mine as I look at you, your spirit shines. I know you hear me, so please do not fear me, 'cause I'm here to lift you, restore you to glory, and love you and hold you and be your victory. My child, I will welcome you home. You see, it's true that we are one, and we came out from the central sun. So when you take a different view, you dream awake, breathe out the new. 'Cause I know you hear me, so please do not fear me. 'Cause I'm here to lift you, restore you to glory, and love you and hold you and be your victory. My child, I will welcome you home. Welcome you home. The world will come alive again. As we dance and sing and make new friends. So lift your eyes up to the skies, and I'll prove to you that nothing dies. I know you hear me, so please do not fear me. I'm here to lift you, restore you to glory, and love you and hold you and be your victory. My child, I will welcome you home. Welcome you home. Welcome you
What a beautiful, slow, and gentle version of that song that we all love so much.
And you
That
know
was-
where that was inspired from?
What?
That version. Remember, we were you did the show in Santa Fe, and you were broadcasting from this brand new house, and Christine came out, and we devised a way of her singing and me playing this song, and that birthed this version of that song with Christine. So
It was beautiful, beautiful. Bonnie and Shoshana and Ayada are all commenting on how beautiful that version of it was. So, a beautiful way to kind of guide us into the night after a very powerful show. And again, wow, what a diversity of conversation and topics. I loved it. And I look forward to hopefully seeing all of you for our Sacred Sunday show tomorrow morning. God's blessings, everybody. Much love. Thank you, Omashar, Diara, Eduardo, all of our friends from World Unity Week, Susan Woldridge, got that extra D in there. Thank you, everybody.